Hello and welcome back to another episode of MetsMusings. It is a special landmark edition of MetsMusing. It's episode number 500. Yes, it is the 500th episode of MetsMusings, and I'm very excited to bring it to you today. It's been a long road, 13 years, but a fun road nonetheless. And I want to thank, certain people along the way as we go along. We've got some messages that we're going to play, and it's just been a blast for 13 years doing this. And as I said, number 500, hard to believe. Never thought I'd get this far, but we started this show as a two-person show, and now my co-host was Barry Newman, who you know from our roundtable, and he's been on by himself a couple of times as well, and couldn't have started or done the show without him. Those first 100 episodes, and missed him greatly when he left, but he's still with us, so that's the best part about it. And Barry's got a little message that he sent, so let's take a listen to that.
Hey Gary, it's Barry, your former co-host of the first 100 or so episodes of Mets Music and still an occasional contributor on roundtables. Congratulating you on 500 episodes of Mets Musings. It's a tremendous achievement, and you should be very proud. Here's to 500 more Mets Musing podcasts and joining you on at least a few of those, especially this coming season when the prospects for a great 2022 Mets season are bright. For now, anyway, all there's to say is keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets.
And thank you, Barry, for those kind words. And as I say, there wouldn't be a Mets Musings without Barry. And the first 100 episodes were a blast to do, and I had to make a decision when he left, and I decided to keep it going, and I'm certainly glad that he did. It kept me off the streets at night, and here we are now at 500. But again, it wouldn't have been a 500 without a one and without Barry. So Barry, I'm always grateful for your friendship and for your knowledge of the game of baseball, and especially Mets history. This guy's forgotten more stuff that most people are remembering about the game and about the Mets. So thank you so much. We've also got a little message here from, these boys, the other parts of the round table, the Looney Tunes at Baseball and Barbecue. And I say that Looney Tunes affectionately because these are two great guys as well who have really kept me inspired by giving them a hand once in a while, and they've given me some inspirations at times to keep going. So let's hear from. They can introduce themselves to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Leonard. That's Jeff. We are Baseball and Barbecue, and we are looking forward to episode 175.
Yes.
It is coming out soon.
Yes, Tom Hannon, Chad Humphreys.
Right. How soon is it coming out, Jeff?
It'll be dropping this Saturday, March
That's right.
the 4th.
Yeah, so guys, it's a good one. And for all you baseball fans that have an opinion on the pitch clock this year, so do we. And we will share that with you as well. And we would like to congratulate and thank our fellow podcasting buddy, our friend, Gary Mack, on episode number
500. 100.
500? 500?
500 episodes.
Wow.
Yes.
Of Mets Musings.
Congratulations, Gary.
That's an accomplishment. And we talk about that a little bit too. So we hope everybody will tune in to baseball and BBQ, where the BBQ stands for, Jeff.
Barbecue.
Hope everybody tunes in. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Again, two of the best guys you ever want to meet. And by the way, they do a terrific podcast. And as I say all the time, the only problem with their podcast is it always makes me hungry at the end. So, but go listen to them as well. And I can't wait to hear what they have to say about MetsMusings. And I've been on that show a number of times with them. Again, they do some great interviews, and they're just terrific guys. So go check them out. Well, as far as Mets news goes, we have spring training started, and the Mets are in full swing, if you will. We're seeing a lot less of a couple of players, and that is not because of the World Baseball Classic, but they decided to slim down a little bit. And the three most noticeable, Pete Alonso, Tyler McGill, and Daniel Vogelbach. Daniel Vogelbach, he's a big guy, and he's dropped about 20 to 25 pounds, and we'll see how it affects his power, if at all. Same thing with Pete Alonso, but these guys wanted to come in and be ready to go, and now that they had a taste of a pennant race, and let's face it, it's a tiring thing. They were pretty exhausted by the end of the year. Now at least they had an idea, and now they know how to handle it, and figured that with a little less LBSs, it would help them endure the long season. So they took off some weight, and we'll see how it works out for them. Hopefully they won't lose any power, and usually you substitute power for muscle. You lose the weight, but you put on some more muscle and you get a little bit stronger. So there's that. So we'll see how it all works out for those guys. But that's the main thing. Brett Baty continues to hit. Ronnie Mauricio continues to hit home runs, and has probably been, so far, I guess you'd have to say, one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive player in spring training camp, and he's really vying for a position. The question is, where do you play him? Lindor's going to be your shortstop. McNeil's going to be your second baseman. My guess is he goes to Syracuse. Mauricio does, and play him in the outfield. I mean, you're going to need a fourth outfielder. Canha's contract is up at the end of the year. You're going to need an outfielder next year. Why not let this kid learn how to play the outfield, especially center field? He could be your center fielder of the future. I know Nimmo signed for the next, 9 years or so, but Nimmo can move to a corner slot and have Mauricio in center field. And, boy, wouldn't that be a good outfielder? There'd be some speed there, boy. And power with Mauricio. The kid can hit. He's strong. He's a big kid. Probably too big for shortstop. They knew he was going to have to move, but, you got Batty and Vientos and Escobar playing third base, vying for that. You got McNeil at second base, and he can play left field. So, and then when McNeil plays left field, you've got, McNeil can also play right field, but you have Guillorme and/or Escobar to play second base. So your utility roles are taken more or less, and but the kid can hit. So what do? you know, this kid has surprised everybody. He had a decent year at Double A, but they're still a little concerned about his pitch selection, and understandably, he's 21 years old. So he's got to work a little bit on that. But man, when he connects, the ball just has a different sound off the bat, and it goes. I mean, he has hit some bombs so far in spring training, and it's been very impressive. He's made the plays at shortstop with the glove too, as well. So there's no denying this kid. This kid's ready to go, I think, and he wants to prove something. As I started to say, he had a pretty good year last year in the minors, but went to the Dominion League and really dominated there over the winter ball season. Dominated completely, MVP of the league. I mean, he was just fantastic, and he's continued it into this spring. So he is sending a message to the Mets that he is a force to be reckoned with and somebody to watch. Now, again, McNeil's here for 6 years or whatever it is. Nimmo is signed. Batty is your prospect at third base. No, and look, he's been hitting as well too. He's been very impressive in spring training so far. So we cannot count him out as well. But we've got to find a place for Maurizio. Don't think about trading him. Save him. That bat is unbelievable. And outfield would be a cool place for him to go to. So maybe that's what they'll do. They play him some reps in the outfield at the AAA, and he gets some more time under his belt. Francisco Alvarez has been kind of quiet so far with him in as far as spring training goes. So I think he'll definitely start the year in Syracuse. I think they want him to get better with the coach catching position and learn how to be a better catcher. And no better way to do that than to do that at the minor leagues. And he'll get a taste of everything. He'll keep learning. And he's another guy. He's 21 years old, so he's got a little bit of time and a long career ahead of him. So he's got a tremendous bat as well. So we shall see how that's going to shake out. But we're very early in spring training, and as I say every year, pay no attention to the record. I think the Mets are 3-3 now in the Grapefruit League. Don't pay it. They're doing stuff. They're trying to see what works, what pitches do they have, and there's a little bit of a rush this year because of the World Baseball Classic. But pay no attention to the record. There's going to be a lot of kids playing for the Mets in the next couple of weeks because once the guys leave for the Baseball Classic, you're going to be left with a lot of the minor leaguers, and some of them are top prospects, and some of them are looking down the road. We're probably going to see a lot of Kevin Parada, although I don't know if any of the Mets current catching staff is going to be going to the WDBC, but if not, we'll probably see a lot of Kevin Parada. We're going to see probably some of the younger pitchers, maybe Tidwell. Hamill is going to the WBC with the Puerto Rican team. Some of the other guys we may see. And so who's looked good so far? Joey Lucchese's looked good. Can't think of his name. John Curtis has looked very good so far. Scherzer Verlander is going to make his debut, as well as Senga, so we'll have to see how they do. Quintana got hit up a little bit, but again, it was the first. He's trying things, folks. Don't worry about it. It's his first outing. He's trying to see what he's got, what works, what doesn't work. Maybe he's trying to pitch to the outside more. Maybe he's trying to pitch to the inside more. Maybe he just learned a new changeup or something. Who knows? It'll all lay itself out as we go along. So don't worry about spring training. And I've gone on, and I've got a terrific guest that we recorded a couple of days ago. He's an old friend of the show, and he's back writing again for the Mets. So let us take a quick break and come back with my very special guest on episode number 500 of Mets Musing.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like barbecue, then tune in to Baseball and BBQ. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Did you know that Baseball PhD can be heard on BaseballTalkRadio.com?
Our shows rotate with other top baseball podcasts.
Now don't forget, that's BaseballTalkRadio.com.
With us, we'll help you get a PhD in life through baseball.
With BaseballTalkRadio.com, you'll hear the rest of the excellent universe of baseball podcasts.
Hello, baseball fans. You're listening to Baseball Talk Radio, the home of great baseball talk shows. At BaseballTalkRadio.com, you're going to find great shows like this one with the great Gary Mack and the MetsMusings podcast. And now back to the show.
Welcome back, and I am joined this week by a voice that's not been on the airwaves for a few years now, but he's back writing about the Mets, and he is Matt Musico, and he is with Elite Sports New York. And Matt, welcome back to Mets Musings.
Thanks, Gary. It's a pleasure to be back. I appreciate the invite.
Boy, it was a long time ago, and I didn't. Who were you writing for then? Was it Rising Apple or somebody?
I think it was Rising Apple, a little bit of MetsMusings as well too.
Yeah.
So it feels like another lifetime at this point. The last time we spoke, I had no kids and hadn't bought a house yet. So there I am with two kids in a house. So things have changed a little bit.
Yeah. And I was working then.
Yeah. Definitely another world.
Yeah. Well, Matt, so you landed with Elite Sports New York, and you're the editor there, one of the editors, and a writer. And how are you enjoying this position now that you're back? I think doing something that you always loved.
Yeah, definitely. It's been nice to get back into sports writing full time and really focusing on New York. When this job ended up working out, I really sat back and thought, well, if there was ever a perfect fit for a full-time job or for what I want to do during the day, other than not working, this is like as good of a fit as I could find. They wanted someone who could focus a little bit more on the Mets. And I've always loved sports, always loved baseball. New York is a baseball town. So like every other stop I've had, it seems as if kind of baseball has been a little bit more on the periphery, but baseball is front and center with Elite Sports New York. So really plays into my strengths, and I've been there back for about 6 months or so now, and it's been a lot of fun, especially in today's world with Steve Cohen's Mets. It's a lot more fun to follow the Mets and chronicle their every move and things like that, for sure.
Well, you must have had a sore hand this off season with all the Mets moves that they made, but they had a great busy off season, but not a lot of new faces. They had a lot of free agents this year. They lost DeGrom, of course. How do you feel about the off season and the moves that the Mets made?
Well, I feel pretty good about it. When you look at the large quantity of free agents that they had at the start of the offseason, they weren't going to be rebuilding in any way, shape, or form. So you knew they were going to reload. And I feel like the biggest narrative out there is that, well, they spent all this money and they signed all these free agents. They signed like 10 guys to major league contracts, which is, I think, tied a franchise record. And they didn't get any better. And it's like, all right, well, you can't really get much better than a 101 win team. obviously most people are thinking about, all right, well, they need to go a little bit further in the playoffs, like that kind of better. Yes, that makes sense. But also at the same time, it's like, well, what did you expect them to do? Their one big hole on the position player side, from a departure standpoint, would have been Brandon Nimmo. There was really nobody else like him in the open market. Trading would have been kind of difficult based off of the prices for certain players and the kind of the thin aspect of the Mets farm system right now. So yeah, did they maybe overpay a little bit? Yeah, but I felt like they were okay with overpaying at any point in time for Nimmo because of what he's able to provide. Nobody else in the free agent market was able to provide that as well too. So you think about the alternatives if Nimmo did not come back. Okay, you take a flyer on Cody Bellinger or take a flyer on somebody else, and it's like, yeah, like you could strike gold, but at least you know what you get with Nimmo as long as he stays healthy. And the same thing with Edwin Diaz. It's all right, he's the best closer on the market. What did you expect them to do? Go find somebody else and try and just hope and pray that they're, somewhat as good as Diaz was? That's like the Wilpon ideology. It's like, let's go take a chance on somebody else that's a lot cheaper and see and kind of hype them up instead. And their pitching staff, I mean, for the most part, outside of the DH situation, the position player side of the house was pretty much set. And there was a lot said about their offense over the second half of the year. And yes, it was a little inconsistent. It was still overall a very productive group. It was their pitching staff was pretty much gutted from free agency. I mean, I think at the start of free agency, it was just the only guys guaranteed back were Max Scherzer and Drew Smith with significant big league experience. Yeah. So, I mean, and there's
Carrasco.
a lot of and Carrasco. Yeah.
Correct.
So like, there's a lot of things a lot of holes that had to be filled there. So yes, I think they got better. When you think of bringing in someone like Justin Verlander, he probably won't have a 1.75 ERA again this year, but he'll probably start 25, 30 games, which is what they did not have with DeGrom last year. So that right there is an upgrade. And you think about Quintana and Senga, like those could also be upgrades, even with Senga being a little bit more of an unknown, just based on his situation. And the bullpen, I think from top to bottom, is probably better than it was last year as well, too. So, I mean, it's hard to complain when you see like all the things that they did, all the money that they spent. Like clearly they're trying to win right now. And that was really the only option that they had based off of what the farm system looks like at the moment. And I read an article last week that Epler had talked to his lieutenants and stuff like that before the offseason started, saying, what should we focus on? Like, what do we have in the minor league system and what do we not have? They have some hitters that they're excited about, like Vientos and Beatty and Alvarez and Mauricio. But they didn't really have a lot of upper levels pitching available. That's why they went and got all those pitchers.
Yeah, I agree. And then I also feel that I think what he's trying to do, Steve Cohen, is that he's trying to bridge. He wants to win now, as you said, and I think he's trying to bridge to 2024, 2025, when they think some of these pitchers that are down in the lower minors, like a Tidwell and some of these other guys, will be up and ready. They were looking at Matt Allen too, of course, but now he's out again. So, that poor guy, he'll be pushed back another year or so. Yeah. But I think that's, this bridge idea as well as contending and wanting to win, and let's face it, you lose a guy like DeGrom, most teams can't replace him. He goes out and gets Verlander. I mean, yeah. As you said, it's going to be an upgrade, being that he probably will stay healthy and at least pitch and thing. And I think they had to sign Nimmo. I mean, Nimmo was the key. Him and Diaz were probably the two key free agents this offseason for them, because you needed to solidify that back end of the bullpen, which they did. Mm-hmm. And then Nimmo, they had to get somebody to keep playing center field. Marte, I don't think was going to cut it all season.
No way.
And as you said, there was nobody else out there. So I think those moves were the best. And as you said, how do you improve on a 101 win team? I mean,
I don't care if they win 101 games again. I mean, if they win 90 and go further in the playoffs or win the World Series, nobody's going to care if they won 90. It's like, are they going to be just the same or just as good? Probably not. They've only won 100 games 4 times in 60 some odd years of their franchise. So they're probably not going to do that again. But I mean, it's a war of attrition. They just got to get into the dance and give themselves a chance.
Now, we hear different stories about DeGrom, that he was distancing himself from some of the players and things. But do you think that the loss of him is going to affect this team at all, or you think that Verlander and Scherzer are such personalities that they can overcome that with the younger players?
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. I think when I think of the DeGrom Verlander situation, when news dropped that he was leaving for Texas, the thing that I thought about was the last time this kind of felt like it happened, which for me at least, the first thing that comes to mind is when Jose Reyes left for the Marlins after 2011. It was kind of like, homegrown player, just won the batting title, like all these great things, and then he left. Yeah. And then it was more like, okay, well, what's next? And then the Wilpons are like, here's Ruben Tejada, or like whoever was next, and it was not, and that's what we were left with. And Mets fans were left with a really sour taste for the entire offseason. Like, I was sad that Jose was gone, because like he was, like part of that, the exciting aspect of him coming up in whatever it was, 03, 04. And you knew that like the future was Wright. And then you were hoping that him and Wright would be together for their entire careers there, because they don't have that many lifetime Mets, but they will have some more now, but not then. But then, so it felt like the same, that initial gut punch felt the same when DeGrom, when news drops. But then you knew the other shoe was going to drop at some point. Like, and that's the big difference. Because like, they're not just going to sit back and be like, all right, well, we have Tyler McGill and David Peterson. We'll just kind of put those guys in the rotations. Like, no, let's go get the AL Cy Young Award winner and a future first ballot Hall of Famer. We'll plug him in here. I think that those kinds of moves will help overtake the pain and, that whatever that gut punch was when DeGrom initially left.
Now you mentioned Peterson and McGill, and do you see them having a big part in this season? I mean, I do, and I think it may be a good thing for them, because now, they already said Peterson looked great yesterday, or looked very good yesterday.
He did.
I think that's going to push him. It's going to push those guys. What's your thoughts on the part they're going to have to play?
Well, I think when we look at opening day rotation and the starting five, and when we look at it, especially at the beginning of spring training, usually everyone's healthy, and we think, okay, well, like these, like Peterson and McGill, they're 6 and 7, they're on the outside looking in. Teams will use 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 starters throughout a year, and especially for a team like the Mets, more veteran rotation. You have Senga, who's used to the 6-man rotation. We don't know exactly what Buck is going to do just yet with all those kinds of things, and obviously the schedule is going to be a little bit different. So he'll find ways to get people rest and keep people fresh, but I feel like they're going to be able to contribute in a starting rotation role a little bit more than we're initially thinking, just to keep everyone fresh and ready for that second half, the stretch run down towards the postseason. So it may not be, every 5 or 6 days, but I think they'll definitely be a factor. And like, it's great to have that kind of legitimate depth. Like, we know that they can do it, not necessarily over like the course of an entire season necessarily yet, because they haven't had a chance to, but like the talent is there. You see the growth, and them being around Scherzer and Verlander and everyone else is only going to help their eventual development.
Yeah. And plus they have experience. It's not like you're calling some guy up from the minors for the first time and throwing him into a pennant race or major league action. These guys have been through it already, and yes, they've been up and down, but and there's been some injuries, but at least they've had a taste of it, and they're not totally scared rookies coming up to play. So I think that'll be a good thing as well. Talked a little bit about the minors. There's some prospects in camp, and some of the Mets are going to rely heavily on, or May 1 and 2 in particular, Brett Beatty or Batty, however you say it, and Francisco Alvarez. And I think the dark horse is going to be Ronnie Maurizio in all of this. Hit a big home run the other day. With the World Baseball Classic, these guys are going to get a long look at by the Mets. What do you think of these three guys and Vientos as well? Who's going to stick? You think anybody's going to stick out of those four guys?
When I'm thinking about what the Mets roster will look like on opening day, and obviously that's just like a arbitrary benchmark. It's huge, it's like the pomp and circumstance. It doesn't really matter who's there because they're all going to contribute, I think, at some way, shape, or form this year. They're all going to be important. I think probably the one with the best potential path is probably Beatty, because it's still, today is February 28th, so it's still February, but the last, his start of spring has been pretty impressive between the inter-squad game on Friday and then Saturday and Sunday, the first couple of Grapefruit League games. He's looked great. And I think it's today on February 28th. I think Escobar is going to take some reps in left field, because I think they said because Team Venezuela may need to use him in the outfield. But that's also interesting for the Mets. You think about how all different permutations and defensive versatility, and Escobar has played a bunch of different positions throughout his career anyways, not outfield necessarily, or not as much, but that could be interesting. And, Buck is really good at mixing and matching, keeping people fresh and, finding the right mix. If Beatty forces his way onto this roster, he's going to play. They want to make it. If he's going to play, he's going to play somewhere, whether it's in the big leagues or in AAA. I'm sure they want him to play every day or close to every day. And it seems like, when you look at the Mets position player situation, third base is, I guess, the most quote unquote unsettled aspect of it, because it could kind of go either way. And I love having Escobar because if he is close to what he was in September, he could be great as another Luis Guillorme almost. He could be the right-handed version of the platoon for DH, or he could play kind of spell guys across the infield, things like that. So I think out of those guys, I'm sure Alvarez will do whatever he can to try and give himself an opportunity to be on the opening day roster, but I just don't think the way that the Mets have filled their roster with Narvaez and Nido, I don't think he's going to be there right away, because they want him to catch. It's not that he's going to hit. We know he's going to hit at some point, but they want him to catch too. So, and who knows with Vientos? I feel like Vientos and Mauricio are a little bit more on the outside looking in, just from a numbers aspect of things. But I'm sure if Vientos hits, they could use a right-handed hitter off the bench. And I think he came to camp with a bunch of different gloves. He wants to play a bunch of different positions too. So it seems like the Mets' credo these last couple of years, especially with Epler in charge, is having that versatility in the field with a lot of the players that they've acquired. So if Vientos can show that he can play a bunch of different positions, they'll probably find a spot for him too.
Well, I'll tell you, I think Mauricio also is making a statement. I mean, he made a big statement in the Winter League. He dominated the Winter League. He has looked good so far in spring training. I think he's a guy that everybody kind of, with Lindor signing, I think they kind of counted him out and they figured, well, they'll probably put him in the trade. But he's making quite a statement. Had a good year last year in the minors. If I'm the Mets, I'm putting him in. I know this is going to be, people going to say, oh, okay, crazy, but I'm putting him in center field, and I'm going to let him play in Syracuse, let him play every day in center field, maybe move him once he gets a little accustomed to that, move him to left field and right field. And then, next year, I think Canna's contract is up. And Marte, I don't know, he's got another year, I think.
He'll have 2 more years after this year.
2 years. I think he'll have a great shot then of moving to the majors, say next year even. If he continues hitting and he picks up the outfield, he could be a fourth outfielder to start with. He's young enough that when, maybe he moves in for Nimmo in a couple of years and Nimmo moves to a corner slot. It's just something that I think that's what they should do with him. He's not like a Vientos. They had him playing left field some last year and the year before. And, Vientos is not a glove guy. Let's face it. Let's be honest. He's a hitter. He wasn't the best out in left field, but at least a guy with Maurizio. I mean, he played shortstop. He's a good shortstop. He's got a good glove, so it's not a question of his defense. And I don't know. What do you think of moving him to a different position?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's come up as a shortstop, he's got that athleticism, the versatility to be able to kind of move around a little bit. I mean, I think in the past he's even said himself that he's open to moving around. I think once the Mets got Lindor a couple of years ago, that was like the first question because he was like the creme de la creme at that point at shortstop.
Right.
But he's only what, like 21, 22. So I mean, he's got, like you said, he's got plenty of time. So I mean, I think if he doesn't, he's going to get in the outfield at some point. It's going to be soon, especially with the way that he has developed with the bat, and like he still needs a little bit of seasoning from like a plate approach, like patience standpoint. Like getting a little bit more selective. But still, even with that, like you said, he looked great in the Dominican Winter League. I think wasn't he the MVP or something like that?
Yeah,
so,
he was just tore up the whole thing.
Yeah, and like you could tell, like his confidence is through the roof right now, which like he needed that kind of like the last year in the minors was good, but then the Winter League seemed like things kind of like hit up another level. Right. And he's looked great so far this spring. A couple of like no doubt bombs. So
yeah, like
that's that's one of those things where like I think it was like similar to Dom Smith like heading into 2020. It's like like there's not really a spot for him. Then he hit like hell in 2020, and they found a spot for him. So like if you're gonna hit, they're gonna find a spot for you.
Now, you wrote an article about Matt Scherzer embracing the technology that has come, and maybe explain a little bit what the PitchCom was the thing they had last year, but they added a feature this year where the pitchers could call their own pitches.
Well, I think I'm not sure exactly like how it was set up last year. It was I think there was definitely a way to communicate both ways. But when it first came out, Scherzer hated it. And I think he even came out and said that it should be illegal. And like, I think he didn't like it just because it took out a little bit of like the mental aspect of being a pitcher. But like with anyone else, like he's found a way to adjust. I mean, like there was a picture in the article that Mike Mayer had tweeted out that had like the PitchCom device like right on like the wrist of his glove, so he could just kind of like put it right up to his mouth probably and just say what he wanted to. I think it was Narvaez who was catching that day. Yeah. But between that and the pitch clock, like he was already excited about the pitch clock. Like he had said back in September or October that he was looking forward to it because he likes to work fast, and he was like working at light speed pace on Sunday when he pitched. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's just a testament to him that like that's what separates good players from great players. Like he has been around for 10 plus years. He's already a Hall of Famer at some point in his retirement, whether it be first ballot or second ballot or third. But he could very easily just try and stick to his old ways, but he's trying to evolve with the game itself, and he's seeing the advantages in putting the pressure on the hitters. And I think he likes PitchCom more now because he's able to just say exactly what he wants. If he has an idea of how he wants to approach a hitter or what he wants to throw first on a certain count, he can just say and then just start moving. So it just allows him to work even faster. So I think that's probably what he sees as the benefit.
Now, I do another podcast with a guy out of Philly, Mr. Rich Baxter, who does the Phillies Talk podcast, and we do the Baseball Talk radio show. But he's totally against all the rule changes. I'm still kind of on the fence. I don't like all of them. I don't. He hates the pitch clock and things like that. I hate the guy at second base for the extra inning. That to me is like the dumbest rule ever. But so be it. How do you feel about bringing the technology into the game? A pitch clock, somewhere down the line, maybe a robo ump, things like that. The bigger bases, that doesn't, it doesn't really bother me. But I'm not crazy about just to add another factor. I'm not crazy about the 3 tossovers and then you're done, because that's But I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to move the action of the game along. What are your thoughts on the technology and the rule changes that they're using this year?
Well, I mean, the jury's still out, obviously. I mostly like them. I think I kind of agree with you with the throwing over to first or second, or like for the pickoffs and whatnot. It takes away a little bit of like the cat and mouse game that you're able to play, with the hitter and the runner and stuff like that. But again, like you can see why, like, people at stadiums hate it when they throw over 5 times. So it's like, if people at the stadium hate it, then more people hate it too. So, I mean, I was curious to see what the pitch clock would bring over the first, few days. And I watched the Mets home game on Saturday night to get a sense of it. And it didn't seem like it really made that much of a difference. I mean, definitely moved at a much brisker pace, which I thought was nice. I think one of the benefits, we just talked about how Scherzer likes it because he gets to work fast, right? And I also think some hitters will probably eventually benefit from it once they get used to it, because it kind of takes out the overthinking aspect of it. Like you're standing next to the batter's box and thinking, okay, what is he going to throw next? We got to just get back in the box and just start to react. And I think, I was nowhere close to being a major leaguer, but as a player myself, like I always played best when I wasn't overthinking things, just reacting to the game and kind of just like seeing everything happen in front of me. I feel like that will eventually benefit some hitters. Just be able to get back in the box, focus on what's in front of them, and not overthink what's going on here. So I liked it. I didn't necessarily notice too big of a difference. I remember reading about the pitch clocks getting started in the minor leagues 1 or 2 years ago, whenever it was. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading people saying it took about a month for players and fans to adjust. But then other than that, it ended up being just a part of the game. Like nobody really noticed it. It just kind of like kept things moving. So I feel like by the end of spring training, it's not going to be so prevalent. Hopefully we won't have the pitch clock like right behind the catcher, like they do it in the spring training complexes and stuff like that. So I think that gives people some agita as well too. But I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. Somebody at work actually equated it to like all the new NFL rule changes and stuff. And like people are like up in arms about like you can't lower your head or lower your shoulder for a hit anymore or something like that. And then after like a month, everyone's like, okay, it's a new rule now. Or it's like how you finally get used to how Facebook looks and they update it and you're all up in arms about it, but then a month or two later you're okay with it because it's just the way that it looks. So I think it's going to have that kind of effect as well too.
They still have to figure out in the NFL what's a catch and what's not a catch.
They'll never figure that out. That's one thing that will be around forever.
Billy Epler, I think he's doing a terrific job this year, last year as well. I think the Mets have made some nice moves that people don't realize. They signed Lucchesi last year and Curtis, and neither one of them, they knew neither one of them were going to pitch because of Tommy John surgery, and they were recovering. And now they have them healthy, and they re-signed them. And I know some people said to me, why would they sign these guys? But I think they knew something. They knew what a track record, and both of them look pretty decent so far. Again, it's only a couple of games and everything, but it's just a good sign that there's some smart leadership going there. And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think when it comes to guys coming, I think they're both coming back from Tommy John. So like you see those like 2-year contracts for guys coming, like undergoing Tommy John and coming back have become more frequent in the last few years. And I think because it's a controlled environment for the organizations, they like to be able to have the player be under contract, work with their doctors, work with their physical therapists, work with them in recovery. So they kind of know the player, they know what to expect. So if they hit bumps on the road, whether it be during rehab or during that next year when they're back, there's a lot more familiarity between the player and the organization as well too. So I think there's a lot of benefit to that kind of stuff. And when you think about these teams, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like they can deal with, say, someone like Lucchesi and Curtis. Like they both made around like $1 million or maybe a little bit under. Like that, any team can handle that, especially a Steve Cohen-led team. So like you can never have enough pitching. You can never have enough depth. There's depth and versatility within the bullpen, specifically a lot of optionable relievers and things like that. So the Mets value that kind of stuff. And I think every team values that kind of stuff and they need it. So, I mean, I think it was a great move. like it's easy to look at the moves that Epler has made for like Nimmo and Verlander and like all the flashy ones. Like, yeah, those are great moves, obviously, but those are like kind of like of course they made those moves. Like what really makes a winner is the ones that go under the radar, like the one for like Brigham and Hernandez in the bullpen. Not that we don't know what kind of role they're going to play this year, but like those kind of under the radar moves for in the bullpen, the 24th, 25th, 26th guy, up to maybe 30 or 35th guy on the 40-man roster, like those moves matter. That's what makes a good team into a great team.
And that's we have to see what his, because he's yet to make a great trade. I think that's fair to say. The big trade, he hasn't made that. He's made a lot of signings. He made some trades over the winter that we'll have to see will pan out this year, but he hasn't made that. I was a little disappointed they didn't do more at the break of last year. I think they could have added another bat, perhaps. But then again, we don't know what's out there. We can speculate all we want as fans and say you should have got this guy, you should have got that guy, but how did that team get that guy? And we couldn't have given him. But maybe the guys that we had didn't match, and that's what people don't understand all the time. But I think they're doing a great job. I think the whole front office, and that has been a little bit of a shakeup. I think the Sandy Alderson era has been wiped out completely with his son and him gone, if you will. It's all Steve Cohen now, it seems, and he's going to put his handprint on everything, and we'll wait and see where it all goes. Got 101 games let win this. Yeah, so just that one game in Atlanta they couldn't win. Just one stinking game.
Yeah, that's how it goes. It always fascinates me with baseball, like when I was playing and then also now. Like you think about, it comes to that months of a regular season, months of preseason stuff come down to that one series in Atlanta, and then it comes down to one game. And like all that preparation, all that marathon that we talk about comes down to just this one moment. And, I think Buck said it a couple times. Sometimes it goes your way. It's a crapshoot, and sometimes it doesn't. They were certainly good enough, I think, to go further than they did, but they didn't play well. The two things that they were best at, I think, when you look at the totality of their season last year, was their starting pitching and their offense. Those two things failed them in the last 2 weeks of the year. With, Scherzer didn't pitch well. Bassett didn't pitch well. And, he didn't pitch the way we were hoping he would in the wild card series, at least. And then, I think in that game 3, didn't they only get like one hit? You can't win if you only get one hit or something like that. So, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes with baseball. It's not any less frustrating. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then you think, that April game in Washington that they, or Miami that they lost, that they should have won, and that would have been the difference. But you can't beat a dead horse about it, and that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, our time is running out, I see. So, tell us a little bit more about Elite Sports, where we can find it, and all of that. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been fun. Elite Sports New York, it is just a site dedicated to New York area sports. We hit on a little bit of everything. Our main focuses are the Mets and the Yankees and the Jets and the Giants. And then we will dabble a little bit in Knicks and Nets and also some hockey. But the first four, baseball and football are our big ones that we focus on. We just try and bring interesting things to the table for people. Like what are New York fans talking about? What are New York fans asking about? What are some interesting trends or funny things that have happened? One thing that happened over the weekend was Keith mispronouncing Jazz Chisholm's name, which was hilarious, back in midseason form, just like things like that. We also do a little bit of focus on sports media as well, too, New York Sports Talk Radio, and stuff like that, keeping a track of Mike Francesa, Michael Kay, and Craig Carton, and people like that, too. So it's been a lot of fun. And, we try and make sure that we bring something interesting or something that has a unique take to breaking news. We don't just break news for the sake of breaking news. We try and put our own spin on it as well too. But you can find us at elitesportsny.com, and you can find me on Twitter at Musico8.
Okay, and great. It's a great site, and you can keep up with all the information by going there. So go check it out. And Matt, again, thank you. And this is a milestone episode for me. This is my
Oh,
500th episode
oh,
of
smokes!
Mets
You didn't tell me that.
Musings. So I didn't want to get you nervous.
Well, congrats! I'm honored to be a part of the milestone.
Thanks so much for coming on, and we'll keep in touch during the season, and I'll have you on again.
Cool. Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Okay, and I'll be back right after this. Well, we're back, and I'm not going to keep you long. This week, I just want to thank a bunch of people. My wife, who's been supportive of the show the whole time, my daughter, all my relatives that have fans and supported the show, and of course, again, Barry and his friendship and his continuous knowledge of Mets baseball, and the boys from Baseball and Barbecue, Len and Jeff, for their friendship and inspiration, and my good buddy Rich Baxter, who has been terrific. He runs the Baseball Talk Radio Network, and probably the first network that MetsMusings went on. And we also do a podcast together called the Baseball Talk Radio Show, and that's on every Sunday. Rich has been a great fan. He does a terrific podcast as well called Phillies Talk, and we have him on whenever the Mets are playing the Phillies, and he gives great insight and great analysis, and it's just been a great friend and contributor. So thanks, Rich, and all the great guests I had from the authors: David Krell, John Shea, Eric Sherman, Brett Topel, Greg Prince. If I forget anybody, I do apologize. And the former players that have been on, Art Shamsky and Ed Hearn and Craig Swan and Ron Swoboda and Ron Darling and Rod Gaspar and Barry Lyons and Skip Lockwood, Kevin Baez. I'm sure I'm missing a few in there, and I apologize, but thank you for your time. And Pete Alonso was on the show a few years ago when he was in the minors, so thank you, Pete, for that. I didn't come on back again. And oh gosh, who else has been on? So many people. All the bloggers and the podcasters that have been on: Anthony Rivera, Sam Maxwell, and the Brooklyn Trolley Dodger. Uh, I can't think of them all right now, and I do apologize. Obviously, I'm doing this all on the cuff. Did not make a list, and I probably should have. But thank you all so much. All the people from out of town that have come on. Thank you for making the show what it is, and I hope you continue to come on, and we'll continue. the beat writers that we've had on, Tim Healy and a couple of the other guys and girls who cover the Mets on a daily basis, and working on getting some of them, and Wayne Randazzo, I think of it, and Keith Rad. Thank you all so much for being on, and I hope you'll like this show, and I hope you'll subscribe and hit the like on YouTube and subscribe so you always know when another edition of Mets Musings is coming out and be right up to date. And so until the next time, remember to keep the faith, to stay optimistic, and let's go Mets. And I'm Gary Mack, and I will be back again the next time with another edition of Mets Musings.